I just want to say thank you for your patience and for coming tonight. We're just going to wait until everybody gets here. We're just helping somebody get up the stairs. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. Call the meeting to order. And I have everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next, we'll have our roll call attendance.
Director Ray. Director Kelly. Here. Director Kingman.
Here.
President Levesque.
Here.
Director Knapp.
Here.
Student Advisor Schroeder.
Here.
Student Advisor LeBon. Here. Superintendent Sweeting.
Here. Thank you. We are expecting Director Ray to join us via Zoom shortly, hopefully. Next up is our approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or edits to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. And next up is the very most exciting part of our meeting, and that's our presentation of our Simply Amazing students and staff. And that will be presented by Dr. Sweeting.
Good evening, everyone. This is a special evening and a night to honor our Simply Amazing staff and students. For students, school administrators selected a student from their school, and they're going to tell you why tonight. When the administrator comes up, they're going to tell you why they believe that student is simply amazing. For staff, we did something a little bit different this time, and I think we're going to continue this. We'll see how it goes, but we opened up the nominations to the students who are being impacted by our staff every day. So why not? Just sounds like a great idea. We placed boxes in each school, and for 2 weeks, students could nominate a staff member. Did not have to be a teacher, could be a teacher, could be a bus driver, could be a paraeducator, a food service worker, could be a custodian, someone from the current year or past that has impacted their life in a positive way. In 2 weeks, we had 556 nominations from students for staff. And there's so many. So what we did is we clustered them together and we randomly pulled out, the ones that are being honored tonight, but they represent all of our staff, but those 556. And here's all those nominations. So the 556 nominations. So what's going to happen to these are important. we're after tonight's celebration, we will give these back to the principals and to the supervisor of the individuals, and they will hand deliver these to those individual staff members so they can read these and see how they've made a difference in the lives of students. So that's kind of cool. And so since that's our mission, to support our students and each student to be successful, we need to hear how that's happening. And it was really heartwarming and inspirational to hear how staff are impacting students' lives in a positive way. So thank you, staff. I want to ask that all the students and staff that are here tonight being honored to not leave. I mean, you will be able to leave, but don't leave until at the very end of everybody being honored, because we're going to take a picture with you and the board so we can have that. And with that, let's get moving. And Bethany Belial, principal from Eagle Creek, is going to start off the evening by telling us about her simply amazing staff and student.
Come on up, Hadley. Oh, I wonder if they can see you. I'm gonna have to move over here so they can see you. I have that same problem. All right, directors, this is my friend Hadley Daggett. She is an awesome third grade student at Eagle Creek Elementary School. Hadley is a great friend and a great student at Eagle Creek. You will never see her in class or in the halls without the biggest smile on her face. She is always ready to help an adult or student who may need it. Hadley is an excellent role model of the Big Five and goes out of her way to show kindness. For example, a few weeks ago, Hadley and her family passed out bouquets of dahlias to families at pickup. This is simple, random act of kindness, no one knew it was happening that day, brought Hadley-sized smiles to everyone's faces. Hadley is doing amazing things at Eagle Creek, and she's going to continue doing amazing things in life, huh? Congratulations, Hadley. All right, Miss Wilson has been a teacher at Trafton and Eagle Creek for how many years now? 16 years. It's kind of like, how does that happen? All in first grade. She was nominated by two brothers, one who had her last year and one who had her this year, Easton and Bentley Watland. I was lucky enough to be in on the interview when Carrie came and asked a little bit more about Jamie, other than she's awesome and she has a beautiful smile, which is both true things. And here's kind of what they said. So Bentley and Easton Watland love Jamie Wilson, first grade teacher at Eagle Creek. When Bentley was in her room last year, he learned that she is really smart and very nice. She helped him become an excellent reader. In fact, he met his reading goal early in April by topping out at the highest level on the DRA test. He is grateful to Miss Wilson because now he's doing well in second grade because she taught him so well last year. Easton is currently in Miss Wilson's classroom, and he really likes math, which Miss Wilson explains very well. The class does number talks often, and some of it is really hard, but Easton likes that Miss Wilson challenges him and the entire class. It is important to note that Miss Wilson loves to celebrate with her class, and she always makes Eagle Ticket rewards extra fun. She even let the class bring stuffed animals when they earned Pajama Day, which both Easton and Bentley called Pajama Day, and I thought it was so cute. No wonder Miss Wilson is simply amazing.
Ms. Belial. Thank you, Bethany. While Colleen Van Bell's coming up, principal from Kent Prairie, I will say that the students, if they could, they wrote out why, very eloquently, but some just wrote one word or so. So we had cabinet members who went out and interviewed the students who wrote so that we could make sure that we really understood why that student felt, or students, because in some cases there were several students that nominated the same teacher, and why that staff is simply amazing. Colleen.
All right. So Sophia's teacher wrote a book here. I'm trying to decide if maybe I'll have to do part of it tonight and she can read the rest with her parents. There were so many things that she wanted to say. Sophia's a fifth grader at Kent Prairie Elementary. Sophia exemplifies what we look for in a well-rounded student and an amazing person. Supremely curious, Sophia always seeks answers and never stops questioning. A strong student academically, she also looks to improve herself in areas in which she feels she is weaker. Sophia gets excited about her own learning and encourages others. She loves reading books and actively encourages others to read some of her favorite novels. She listens to her fellow classmates and is developing into a strong critical thinker. Need a leader in a cooperative group? Sophia is always willing to step up to that role without feeling like she's taking over. If someone needs a positive boost or a push in the right direction, Sophia is a great cheerleader. Right here. And I've got Tiffany Gates. She teaches second grade, and I don't, what we're saying, how many years? It's at least, I was gonna say 6. Okay, that was a good guess. So it was really fun to sit in on the interviews because Mrs. Gates had a huge list of kids. I had to choose a few, and I didn't want to give away the secret because I didn't know if she knew. So I chose just kids from last year. And so it was a group of 5 of them. And it was, I don't know how it got put into words because it was really a lot of fun to listen to. So here's Carrie's great writing. There are many students at Kent Prairie who believe that Tiffany Gates is simply amazing. First of all, she teaches her students amazing things, especially in math. When she teaches, she is kind to everyone in the room, making sure students understand and can do the hard problems she gives them. She also does fun activities with her students. Kids get to learn yoga moves and tapping. Bexley remembers learning about tapping from Mrs. Gates. She says, carefully tapping pressure points helped us calm down when we were too hyper after recess. Other favorite memories were making vanilla ice cream, the turkey project, and making slime. Jackson remembers that Mrs. Gates was always happy and kind and that she loves coffee. He says she drinks it a lot, like every single morning, like 2 cups. Also, Jackson says she never got mad. And that was really funny too, because he was asked if he ever did anything to make her mad. That was pretty funny. Ryan summed up how amazing Mrs. Gates is by saying, my favorite thing about Mrs. Gates is that she taught us so many amazing things, and she's always there for us.
Thank you, Colleen. Sarah Durant, principal of Pioneer.
Good evening. First off, we have Michaela Neer, she was nominated by her teacher, but then when talking with the rest of the staff, they said 100%. They agreed that Michaela Neer is simply amazing. Here's what her teacher had to say. Michaela was chosen because not only is she a hard worker and respectful to all her teachers, but she is also a great friend to her classmates. Michaela notices when a classmate is upset or if they need help, and she is always the first one out there to help. Or she does a really great job of cheering people up too. She makes sure everyone is included and no one is left out. She deserves to be recognized for her kind heart, and she is truly simply amazing. And for our staff, how long have you been at Pioneer? 6 years. So we have Beth Eddy, who was nominated by Addison Walter, who was a 2nd grader. And it was really fun to listen to all of the great things that Addison had to say about Miss Beth. Addison Walter got to know Beth Eddy at Pioneer's playground. Addison saw Miss Beth being kind to a student on the playground and started hanging out with her. She talked about hanging out was really fun. On Mondays, they often chat about the weekend or discuss how to help other students on the playground for that week. Miss Beth shows kindness to each and every student she works with, and that matters a lot to Addison. I like to see it when she helps kids with disabilities, Addison said, and she is one of a group of helpers of students who ensures that each child has a friend to play with at recess. Guess who organizes those class helpers? It's Miss Beth.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Jamie Miller, principal of Presidents, to come on up.
Hello, good evening. Going to find tonight's pretty special for me because one of my teachers nominated my child for Simply Amazing. So I'm going to read what she wrote. From her 5th grade teacher, Denise Wilson. Courageous and heroic are the perfect words to describe Anya. At the beginning of the year, one of her classmates had a medical emergency, and Anya sprang into action, supporting me as her teacher and supporting her classmate that had fallen ill. She helped me relocate her classmates to another teacher's classroom, ran to get our school nurse, and then returned to stay with her classmate that was sick. She was calm, confident, and compassionate, and her presence even helped to put me and her classmates at ease as we were both scared. Her actions that day were nothing short of heroic and speak to her incredible character as a student. I'm proud to have Anya in my class and to have her represent President's Elementary as our Simply Amazing student. Joe. All right. And our staff member is Mr. Jeff Forney, our custodian. And he was nominated by Alex Williams, a 5th grader. Alex Williams knows exactly why Forney is simply amazing. He keeps stuff clean, and for me, it would be hard to keep stuff clean. I forget to put stuff away, and when I'm done, even when I'm just done with it, it helps me understand, and I try to remind myself to keep stuff clean. In a school of roughly 500 students, Alex knows full well that there's always something to be cleaned up. He especially likes that Mr. Jeff has a green team up and running. This team works hard after lunches are over, sweeping under tables. There's a lot of stuff under the tables, helping put tables away and taking breaks to keep from being too tired out. Alex sums up his respect for Mr. Jeff by saying, he makes President's a better place because he keeps it clean and organized. So people don't get all sloppy everywhere. So they know to clean up their own messes. We don't really talk, but he's a really nice guy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, next, Trevor Summers, principal of Howler Middle School.
Good evening, everybody. When we looked for nominations for our students, Tim's name came up with all of his teachers and including both counselors who our counselors split up by Alpha. So the fact that both of them were like, Tim's got to be our nominee speaks very highly to what he does. So for Tim encapsulates what it is to be simply amazing at Howler Middle School. Tim is extremely helpful to his classmates, including serving as a translator for a student in each of his classes. He is always friendly, helpful, and kind. He's excelling in all of his classes and has demonstrated exemplary behavior. Tim is a model student, a role model for his classmates, and is simply amazing. Darby DeJesus, math teacher. Mrs. DeJesus was nominated by several students who said she is simply amazing because she helps me learn better and broke down a math problem if I needed help. She helps me learn math after and in school. She has helped me understand many of the subjects in math that I did not know. She is very helpful and kind, and she has given me a better understanding in math, and in the process has been very helpful and caring. Darby, you're an amazing math teacher. Thank you very much. There we go.
Thank you. And Mr. Summers is going to remain up there and he's going to hand out the certificates for Post, but Leslie Olson, principal of Post, is on Zoom and she's going to share who's simply amazing from her school.
Good evening. I am so excited tonight to recognize our simply amazing student, Diego Romero. Diego is a 7th grader at Post Middle School. He was nominated by his math teacher, Mrs. Tuckwell. She shared that he is a quiet leader. He takes care of his work and wants to learn. He is great at advocating for himself when needed, and he is always willing to help others when they need help. Our students look to him as a leader and a good friend. He is one of those unique middle schoolers that all students seem to like. We are so lucky to have Diego making a difference at Post Middle School. Diego is simply amazing.
Diego couldn't be with us tonight.
Correct. I did call home and talk to them, so we will get him his certificate. And next up, we have Mr. Eric Davis. Mr. Davis is a first-year teaching his first year with us at Post, and he was nominated by several students who said he was simply amazing because he is the best at teaching. He always helps me and is very funny. He is super nice. He is very helpful, and he gives us plenty of time to finish our assignments. He's kind and explains things and is patient. He's very chill, funny, and an understanding teacher. He teaches me well and gives me lots of challenges and is super funny and cool. He's kind and hilariously amazing. He was really nice to me, even when I was upset. I want to share that Mr. Davis replaced Mr. Foster. And for those of you that know, those are some big shoes to fill. And he has not only came in and supported our computer programming and technology, but he's also making it his own, and he is making a difference with kids. So we are so excited to recognize him as our Simply Amazing staff member.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Marilee Herman, who's principal of Arlington High School, to come tell us about her Simply Amazing staff and student.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm guessing my Carly is not here. Yeah, she hates being the center of attention. And so I'm not surprised, but I'll make a big deal tomorrow. So it'll be fine. So our student is senior Carly Bartlow. And this is what her nominee had to say about her. Carly is sweet and she is fierce, a hard worker academically and athletically. Carly also stands out as an AHS Eagle in her connections with staff and peers. Her confidence in who she is embodies the characteristics of an Eagle. Work hard, be kind, get involved. She's a true leader in ASB and is part of our student community. Carly's passion gets her involved in the lives of her peers and in the culture of our school. She shows underclassmen what it means to be an Eagle and a community leader through her involvement. We also kind of, and on the main office, have a drink we get from Starbucks. We call it the Carly. So that's how much we love our girl. Yes. So I'll just bother her about it and make a big deal tomorrow, but come meet her anytime. Oh, here it is. Okay, and come stand next to me, please. I know you are, but you're an adult, so you show up. It's different. Yes. So our nominee for Simply Amazing staff is Julie Martin, and Julie is one of the huge puzzle pieces. I'm ad-libbing this part to just building a stronger culture at Arlington High School. You know, we've been bringing a lot back since COVID. I mean, across the board, you guys know, nationwide, that's the thing. And a big piece of that is rebuilding culture and making sure that kids find their place again, because a lot of them have lost it. And this is one of my huge puzzle pieces to make that happen. And Julie was nominated by one of her students. She's a leadership and health teacher and ASB guru of all things at Arlington High School. Julie Martin tirelessly works to improve the culture of Arlington High School through leadership. She works to engage and inspire and constantly shows love to each and every student in our building. One student had this to say about Mrs. Martin. She is simply amazing, has impacted my learning by showing me leadership skills and helping me through many challenges. She's impacted my life by being so sweet and asking me and all her students how their day is going. She always makes me smile when I'm having a bad day. We are so lucky to have you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Carrie Marsh, principal at Still-Squamish Valley Learning Center. And AOP. And
You can stand right here, Zeth.
For the Still-Squamish Valley Learning Center, we have Zeth Schrader as our Simply Amazing student. He's an 8th grader with us in our on-site program, and he was nominated by his math teacher, Mrs. Manza. Thank you. She's the best, right? She said that Zeth has worked really hard in his classes here at SVLC and is taking more academic risks. Zeth is kind to his peers, willing to work with anyone, and always has a positive attitude. Zeth is truly a simply amazing student. Congratulations, kiddo. Oh. And our staff member is Mrs. Janelle Sable. Janelle was nominated as our fiscal secretary, although she has recently resigned that position and is now working with us as a student teacher. Janelle was nominated by Lily Ulrich, Max Peterson, and Ava Davis. Every student at SVLC knows Janelle Sable as the smiling face greeting them in the school office. Janelle's presence at SVLC is unmistakable. She knows each student by name, loves to talk with each one, and participates enthusiastically on Spirit Days. That is true. Just ask Max Peterson, who walked into the office on Halloween morning. And as always, Mrs. Sable greeted him and he was happy to see her. And then he saw how she was dressed. It must have been looking in a mirror because Janelle was dressed exactly like Max. It took a moment for him to realize what her costume was, and then they both cracked up. And we cracked up all day that we had two Maxes on site. Others loved Janelle too, of course. Ava reports that she loves Janelle for her kindness. She said that Mrs. Sable is very kind and helped me with everything. Thank you, Mrs. Sable. Lily Ulrich appreciates that Janelle is understanding and kind too. She also teaches people amazing things and has impacted Lily's life by her example. As Lily says, she's great, and she certainly is simply amazing.
Thank you.
There you go.
And Carrie Marsh is going to remain because she's going to step in for Andrea Dixon Hundermark, who is the principal of Weston, but out tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to share Weston's student and staff. Is Morgan here? Their simply amazing student for Weston is Morgan Bremnes. Morgan has been a top student this year. She's been making the extra effort in all of her classes. She sets a great example of how to achieve your goals even when times are hard. She is friendly, nice, and willing to help out whenever needed. Morgan's growth from her freshman year is beyond believable. She is the best type of Weston student. Mr. Brown shared that Morgan is a rock star in each of her 3 classes. She provides leadership to every classroom situation she is in. She regularly asks clarifying questions, offers help to others, and always adds positivity to the class environment. On the rare occasion she misses a class, she promptly checks in about what was missed and quickly makes up the work to get back on track. In leadership class, she has excelled as a project director and has shown a great ability to come up with fun, creative, and meaningful experiences for our students. Morgan is simply amazing. And last but definitely not least is Mr. Farrell, the math teacher. Mr. Farrell was nominated by a student in Weston who said he is simply amazing because he has made some of my worst days better just by being overly enthusiastic or letting me draw little frogs on the board or my assignments. I don't think there's a better compliment, honestly. He also runs the only 2 clubs at Weston. He is definitely amazing. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Congratulations.
Congratulations to all of you and to all of our staff that were nominated. We're going to have a picture and I think it's going to be in the hallway. The board is going to join. And because out in the hallway, if you have not seen it yet, the pictures of all the students and the staff that were celebrated tonight are up in the hallway, and they will remain there until we have the next group of nominees, which will be in the spring. So we do this twice a year. So fall and spring. So can we take a quick recess to go out to take a picture? Okay.
And then you can always stay for the rest of the exciting meeting, or you're welcome to go home, whatever you choose.
Yep, we brought that door. It's already locked.
Oh, yeah, Gina, not riveted by your financial reporting. You're so lively. I love listening to you. Oh. It might be starting.
We want to welcome everybody back. Thank you for allowing us to go in the hallway and take a quick picture with our Simply Amazing Award winners. We think that they're all simply amazing. It's really wonderful to have such positive acknowledgement. Next up, we're going to have our approval of the minutes. We have regular meeting minutes from November 14th and our special board meeting event attendance minutes from November 17th through the 19th. Are there any changes to any sets of the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from November 14th?
Make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes from November 14th. I second.
Madam Clerk.
Director Ray, Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Next up is our special board meeting event attendance minutes. This is from our WASDA conference. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the special board meeting minutes, November 17th to 19th. I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the event attendance minutes from November 17th through the 19th. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray.
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Thank you. Next up, we would have our public comment portion of the meeting, but I don't see anyone signed up online or in person. So next up, we'll have our consent agenda. That includes our budget and enrollment reports, our personnel report, warrants, and adjusted warrants. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Next up is our report of donations approved by the superintendent for November.
All right. This is always a wonderful thing to do, is to share that our generous community. We had the Arlington High School's Booster Club donate $2,365 for the cross-country camp, which actually the funds were used to cover the director's cost. And I approved that during November.
Thank you. Next up is our donation agreement from the Arlington High School football. And that will be also our superintendent Sweeting.
Barely.
Oh, Marilee, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, yes, the Gridiron Club has a donation for us. I actually don't know how much. Do you guys have that? Pass that info on over to me, please.
$20,000.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate that. Of $20,000, and the Gridiron Club functions very much as like a boosters for a football program. Without them, we wouldn't be able to run the quality program that we do. And you guys know Arlington High School Eagles football quality program. Oh, like everything we do at Arlington High School. Anyway, so we would like to propose that we accept that donation of $20,000.
Does anybody have any questions? This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the $20,000 donation?
I make a motion, we approve the $20,000 donation.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the $20,000 Gridiron donation.
Director Ray,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you from Arlington High School.
Thank you. And thank you to all the parents that help support the students. Next up, we'll have our financial highlights of our current budget. This will be presented by Gina Zutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services. Good evening.
Good evening. Hear a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Oh, okay, it's all good. Okay, so here I am. This is my first financial highlights of the current budget for this new fiscal year, 22-23. And it is in alignment with our October financial statement reports that are on the consent agenda. So I'm here to share with you what are some of the highlights from this point in time, what we know. So this is going to look a little bit familiar to you because I'm going to talk about some of the financial positives. I'm going to talk about some of the financial challenges, and then we'll get into some of those, a little bit more into the unique details of current budget. Some positive theme, repeat, healthy beginning fund balance helps sustain operations. We have our 4-year educational programs and operations levy. 22-23 is the 3rd year of this 4-year levy. Federal funds, we have much of our federal funds have been exhausted, but a bright star, a shining star is the additional year of Department of Health Learn to Return funding, $404,000, and that is helping to fund the health room assistants and some of the nursing staff, additional nursing staff. Capital levy, 22-23 is the 3rd year of the 6-year levy. So that money goes into the capital projects fund and is continuing to fund the projects that we have underway, many of which have been done. So financial health of the district, let's talk about some of the challenges. We do have a planned spend down of fund balance. Our fund balance has supported us through our programs and services through very challenging times. And this is resulting in a declining ending fund balance compared to prior years. The estimated ending fund balance for 22-23, according to our budget, is 4.2. Now that's going to change and fluctuate as we go through this year. And I'll talk about later how I believe that it will be higher than a 4.2, but we will be watching the trends as things happen and go. Variables change. Our enrollment is recovering at a slower rate than we would have hoped. It is recovering. We are growing. Our enrollment has increased over the previous year, even though when I talk about enrollment in the budget reports, I'm comparing it to what did we budget for? And we're a little under what we budgeted our enrollment was going to be. However, not to forget or disregard that we have more students than we had the previous year. So we do see that growth. The federal relief funds have been exhausted. So we got the Learn to Return, great, but the additional COVID relief funds, ESSER funds that we had that really helped us do some extra things and keep our class sizes lower in the previous years has been fully exhausted. We worked really hard to make sure that we could fully utilize those funds and not be dragging on into future years with those. The certain programs with unique needs are greater than the revenues that are generated by the associated funding models at the state. I want to emphasize when I say this is not to be interpreted as a negative or reflection on the special education programs or departments or the students with our special needs. It is a fact that the state is not providing adequate funding for what we need to do that we know we need to do to meet student needs. So that is what we're trying to highlight here, not a negative on special education.
Gina, could I ask a question about enrollment?
Sure.
So I'm curious about working around understanding our increase in people living here. And I wondered how our enrollment, if that's coming from new people moving into complexes being built, and or is it people who have left during the pandemic and now are returning, whether it be on site or in AOP program? I just wonder if you know the breakout.
I do not. That is a degree of detail that probably some of our demographics, I would probably said that wrong, but they might be able to say more fully. Brian might be able to lend some perspective on some of that. He has had his hands a little bit more in that, and that might be part of a study session.
Yes, in fact, it is scheduled. There'll be some information next Monday. The 5th, there'll be information that will be shared by Executive Director of Operations, Brian Lewis, about because we had a study done by a demographer, and we'll talk about the trends where, based on their study, where did we land? And so.
But thanks for the question. Yeah. And then the last 2 points on here, just we're continuing to recover from the impacts of the pandemic. Things are becoming a lot more as they were before, but we are forever changed and we're still recovering from some of those things. Preparing for future reductions to be enacted in 23-24 as well. Those are challenges. This is what our fund balance trend is looking like right now as of the end of October, so that you can see the trend of how things are coming along. So this is a 4-year trend. The hot pink line is at the top is 2019-20. The gold line kind of in the middle is 2021. The lighter blue or turquoise line is 21-22. And you see that it's bouncing around, mostly following the same pattern, the higher months in October and April being as a result of us collecting the majority of the property taxes that come due and collected by the county and passed on to us during those months. But the main thing that you'll notice is that the dark blue, navy blue line is this year. And as we've been discussing, our fund balance trend is much lower than it has been in previous years. We've started the fiscal year above what our minimum board policy would require of us. So that is still positive, but at the end of the year, we will still be much lower than we have ever been in the past, since 2008. And missing from this chart, because we only have 4 years, was 18-19, and that line was above the hot pink line. Okay, Fund balance as of October is 10.7 million. And my cursor does show up. You see it right there. That's where we are for October, 10.7 million. This is a OSPI financial indicators tool that I have updated for 21-22 because it is now complete. OSPI has published the numbers on the far left, 2015 through 16 through 2021. And then I have extrapolated because I know the numbers for 21-22 because that fiscal year is complete. And I have projected those into this tool. And so we believe that will be a 2.95 figure for 21-22. But budgeted estimate, if I just take the raw numbers that are in our budget, that was the official, and that provides us budget capacity for spending and a capacity for revenues, that would put us in the 1.55. Do I think that's where we're going to land? I do not. But awareness that just those raw numbers is generating a 1.55. The cut score for this tool that OSPI has done, it's weighted financial scores and puts them all together and gives you this score. The cut score beneath 1.75, you would be considered to be on financial watch. And the tool, you can see all school districts laid out who has what score across the past 4 or 5 years. And there are a few scattering of districts that are in that financial watch score. There's some in the past too that were on financial watch, and then they improve over the next few years to be out of that financial watch zone.
What does it mean to be on financial watch, and what are the ramifications? Are we in timeout? Do we have to stop doing something?
I would have to imagine this because we have never ever been so close or this close. But what I believe would be the consequences, kind of just what it sounds like. You're on financial watch, and the auditors would probably be utilizing that in their next financial statement audit of you, because they look at what's your sustainability plan? What is are you a concern for being able to still operate? So they'd want to know what our plan is to write that figure. Otherwise, I don't think that there is any consequences unless you have a negative fund balance. And then that's a problem. The OSPI could put you in binding conditions, and that's more serious.
What does it mean if we had a bond? Would it interfere with the bond rating or something?
I don't think that they use this tool. They use much more complicated tools. And yes, they look at our fund balance, and yes, it can impact our bond rating for future going out for bonds. But we still have the states overlaying bond rating as well, in addition to our own. So that's a positive. Okay. Any other questions on this for now? We'll be talking, and we will be looking at this again as we go through the year.
Gina, quick question. So if I was to look at the first, it says fund balance to revenue ratio, that's a series of numbers. And then underneath it, is it expenditures to revenue ratio? So what is, those look very similar, except for the one for 20 and 21. See the difference between 1.6 and 1.05. Can you explain really the difference between those two headings for me?
Yes, it's dividing, it's going fund balance against revenue, and our fund balance being higher and our revenue being lower. But our expenditures also being much higher compared to the revenues. That's the only way I would, generating.
And the expenditures, it looks like that wasn't. Yeah, it's interesting. 1.05 expenditures to revenue was much lower, right? From 2021 to 1920 versus if you look at that same year comparison for the fund balance to revenue ratio, it's interesting. How much different that is. I'm just thinking of, I'm thinking of expenditures, right? I'm thinking of inflation and things.
Yeah.
And then that revenue, they're not related. I know that, but I'm just kind of following those numbers a little bit. It's kind of interesting to track that
Yeah.
and see what a difference. Yeah, because it really drops down from 1920 to 2021.
Yeah. I'd have to look at the chart that calculates it again to answer really like, oh yeah, you know. But I'll check those numbers and take a look again and see if it generates an additional explanation for me that would help explain that. Because at first glance, you might think, oh, that doesn't, I'm not sure I understand that. Yeah, I'll look at it.
Can you also explain the days cash on hand? It looks like it drops to 0 for a budgeted estimate for 22-23. And that's not really a day, right?
It's a 0 score.
It's a score. Okay.
Yeah. It's not, they calculate that at 60 days. I can't remember how that's calculated. Days cash on hand compared to your average monthly expenditures or something like that. I don't remember exactly the formula.
But it looks like there's not much days with cash on hand.
We're at a level where they give us no points for that. Doesn't mean we're 0, but it means that they don't give us any points for having a lot of cash on hand from month to month to month. That's what that means. Oh, and that might also explain why some of the numbers are kind of looking similar between 2021, 21, 22. It's not really measuring the number ratio itself. It's a score assigned to where you are in the ratio that they're calculating, if that makes sense. But I'll still look at it to remind myself. Okay, this is the 4-year budget summary, multi-year working forecast that was in our budget, our official 4-year budget summary that we did back in August. So these numbers were generated from July estimates, and I just want to root us in that that's what it was. And our ending fund balance was projected to be below minimum for 22-23. And the out years we were projecting or saying, you know, this is really indicative that we're going to need to make reductions. And even arriving at the 4.248 fund balance here in 23-24 next year would require assumed a reduction of 4.5 million. So that was an indicator, and that revenues are not sufficient to sustain what we have going for next year. And I want to also show how that compares to our minimum fund balance policy as it currently is, that the target minimum fund balance, it's positive still. So, but it's not at the level it should be according to what we would want to maintain for our policy. The percentages and negative amounts in red indicate caution since the district is dropping below the minimums and future reductions will be necessary. This was in our budget presentation back in August. And I want to highlight the idea of board policy requiring the 1 month's average operating expense. It puts us in this area, 7.9, 7.5, 7.7, and 8 million across the next 4 years. That would be what we would want to get as a target minimum fund balance with our current policy. Something that we may be contemplating is a change to the board policy from 1 month's average operating, which would be roughly 8% of our total expenditures, to one that is 5% of operating expenditures. That is not at all out of line with an average fund balance policy across the state. Our 8% is not either, but I wanted to show you what those dollar amounts look like for minimum fund balance. If it were at 5%, we'd be hitting what we would want to have is a 4.8 million, 4.6, 4.7, and 4.8. And again, these assume that we have made reductions.
Do you know what would be an advantage to changing that policy?
being in compliance with our fund balance policy and still being appropriate financial stewards of the reason we have a minimum fund balance.
And you're suggesting only really considering that once we would make a decision on reductions, and those are planning to be implemented, then we could consider a board policy change.
We might need to do that for this year, 21 or 22, 23, so that when we end our year, we're not out of compliance with our minimum fund balance policy.
So what kind of window of time are you talking about? Are you talking about the next first or second quarter of 23?
I'm not exactly sure when I would say to want that. I'm not sure that that's what the board actually would want to do. So we need to have more discussion. I'm just illustrating that it's here and that I would be coming to you if it is something that we get more serious about doing and telling you, putting that timeline out there. But if we had to do it, we would want to do that before we ended our fiscal year.
Okay, but we're having this discussion about the any reductions. And that I think we talked about something maybe hovering around the end of first quarter, somewhere second quarter. So I'm trying to think of how those line up.
Yes, and I think I have a slide that talks about that a little bit, but we have to have decisions in hand before we will really know how much the revenue is going to be next year. If there's changes from the legislature that would help us, we will have to have made the decisions that we need to make reductions, because it won't be enough. By April 24 would be a board resolution, or by the latest May 8, because we have obligations to report to staff whether they have continuing contracts by May 15.
Did you mean 24 or 23?
April, did I say April 24 is the date? April, no, we're meeting on April 24, unless I've got the wrong date.
But the year is 23.
Yes. Yeah. April 24, 2023.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay.
And Jean, I appreciate you sharing this, because this could be, as we grapple with the need to make reductions, they are deep. And so this would provide an opportunity to meet what we need, where we need to be for, but not do so many cuts in staff or other areas.
Gina, can I ask another question?
Certainly.
What is the requirement for a minimum fund balance? Is it state law? Is it OSPI? Who sets that?
I think I will say that is, unless there's some other requirement that I'm unaware of, it is district policy that sets that. There is, it's best business practice to have one and have it be appropriate. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, does certainly have documents that describe that there should be a policy around minimum fund balance and give some of the conditions on that. Been a while since I've read it, but I know it exists.
I'd be curious of what the other districts around us, what their percentages or what their minimum fund balance policies look like.
Yes. I wish I knew that by heart, because we always are surveying each other in our meetings. We're always asking who has what policy, who does what, and then you hear it and you take notes. We're not out of line with what our neighbors are. There's a smattering of some that are high, and also the ESDs just put out a study of all the districts in Snohomish County, Skagit, Whatcom, and Island County, I think, is in there too. All the districts, what they have for fund balance across the past 3 years, the percentage of expenditures that it is, percentage of revenues that it is, whether it's declined or increased. There's quite a few districts that are on the declining end. There's some that have increased. So it's all across the board. Yeah. But 5% is still a very good figure and a good number. 8% is really good too. And it can depend on the size of district that you are and the challenges or the uniqueness of each district. Okay. This is a potential forecast that I've worked up. And, more factors becoming known, more time to run some calculations. And this is not this is what's going to happen. This is here's another set of a working forecast, and we will continue to revisit these and maybe make some changes as more factors become known. I did take a creative license. I won't really, maybe shouldn't say creative, but for the beginning fund balance in 23-24, I did bump that up by 2 million, the what if, because we often do not spend every dime of what we plan to spend for various reasons across a multitude of different pockets of budget that are being managed by our leaders in the district. Not everything is always expended. So if past history kind of comes true, we probably will not end at 4 million. We would end possibly in the $6 million range. But I'm watching that every month as our expenditures roll in and looking at our outstanding encumbrances and looking at revenues as they're coming in, what I expect to still come in, what has come in, and I'm looking at that target in fund balance to see how's that shaping up. So I did start this projection showing 2 million more. That is not an assurance that it will be, but this is what it looks like if it is. And this is what we estimated for revenues. This is what I'm looking at for expenditures, running again salaries and looking at those calculations. That puts our ending fund balance still in the 4.1 million. That's assuming a reduction of 4.9 million. And that also in those out years, I just want to share the projection percentages that I used. IPD, which is a mystery number right now, but I have seen some ideas that it could be 3%. I have seen some ideas that it could be 2.1%. I really don't know. I used a 2.5, kind of an in-between number in the expenditure projections. And we do know that our collective bargaining agreements that we have negotiated with our union is that 3% on top of that for 23-24. So that's the figures I used in calculating our total expenditures kept, materials, supplies, and equipment, and those fairly level, didn't calculate a lot of increase there. And for 24-25, I'm going conservative again with a 2% IPD and a 2% IPD in the out years. We really don't know. 5.5 was quite an anomaly which was for 22-23 this year. And it could very well be very high again. I'm just keeping a pulse on what I'm hearing from the experts around and what they're hearing from the legislature, and we'll continue to update. It is not a number they pull from the sky, even though it kind of sounds like it right now. It comes out on a Department of Revenue forecast. Our ending fund balance compared to the target minimum, if we were to go to that changed minimum fund balance policy and landed our fund balance where I was just showing it to be, would be a lot closer to meeting our minimum fund balance policy then, and probably could make some minor tweaks and still hit that, not be under. Okay. And getting close to the end of my presentation for you. Just laying plans for the future. We are still working really hard this year to do the best we can to help ourselves for next year. And any way that we can have cost savings this year is what we're trying to do. We've had some vacancies from attrition or retirements. Those are always being evaluated very closely to determine, hey, can we not fill this? What happens if we don't? Now, a lot of times we really don't have a choice. It's a position critical to safety or security, or it's legal compliance related, and or the positions are required or funded by grants. So we have to look at each of those as they come up. We are delaying replacement cycle for contemplated equipment purchases, reducing travel, reducing supplies, reducing overtime. And we're looking for additional revenue, additional grants, or other revenues for 22-23. And then setting us up for 23-24, we're continuing with the board, you're going to be hearing from me continual budget updates during the year regarding the budget development for next year, legislative potentials, enrollment projections will be coming. We're going to do that earlier than we have typically we've been in a pattern and it's been fine February, but we're going to try to come early with next year's projected enrollment or a proposal to the board, and then the board can grapple on that. But that would be January that we're hoping to do that. And then what follows from there is some of the staffing plans and needs and potential new revenue, prioritize needs, involvement of the board, community, and students and staff. We have our budget advisory task force meetings that are underway. We have another one scheduled December Tuesday. 6th. Thank you. And our budget forum meetings coming up, which are certainly open to anyone of interest. They're open to the public. And the legislative session is going to conclude April 23rd. It's a longer session this year. They vary. Sometimes a short session ends in March, the long session ends in April, and there's no guarantee they're actually going to be done and out on time. So they can extend. Hopefully they do not. It makes it very difficult already that they're out April 23rd. It makes it even more difficult the longer that they go. And the challenge is the board action for reductions have to occur by April 24. That's a board meeting. Or the latest would be by May 8 in order to meet contractual obligations for staff by May 15. So we're going to keep revisiting what are those timelines? What are those? So that we really know them and we won't be questioning that. What could change the picture? Cost inflator for IPD for future year salaries. I talked about IPD and not knowing what that is, but that will definitely be of impact. Demographics of staff experience change over time. So our veteran, experienced, well-educated staff are more expensive. Our newer or middle teachers are not as expensive. And then compared to the funding, so it varies there. If we were to have a pendulum swing where a majority of our teachers were in the middle or newer, that would certainly help our funding picture, but it wouldn't necessarily help us in other ways. And I don't see that happening very steadily. We tend to have more experienced, more veteran staff. So, and then the outcome of careful spending in 22-23, that'll help our financial position going into 23-24. For the revenue side, what could change the picture? Enrollment uncertainty. So if we have more students, we will generate more revenue. If we have more students than we've planned for. Regionalization, rebase, legislative action, there's a number of things that they're considering. Regionalization is one of them, the rebase of how they're figuring that out. And the increase for special education program funding, there's continuing to be lobbying for that. Increase in the prototypical school funding model. I think that is the number one best way to help districts right now meet the demands that they've already agreed to. And then state challenges or state changes to the compensation funding model are being considered. And hopefully those would help us as well on the revenue side. And that is the end of my slides. Are there any questions? Deep breath.
I'm hoping our student advisors have some really thoughtful questions to ask you, since we learned about budgets at our WASDA conference and they took tedious notes.
That is great. I hope you were absorbing it like sponges.
Sorry to disappoint, but no questions at this time.
To be fair, yes, we did learn a lot about budgeting and financing. Big thing I got from this is we need more money and we need to dial back on and save up. Adulting. Woohoo.
I'm going to quote you. I'm going to put that in there. Say it just like that. Do you want this or the short version? We need more money. We need to dial it back. And what was that last thing? And adulting. Thank you, Mariska.
Thank you, Mariska. Mike Ray, are you still with us on Zoom? Do you have any questions for Gina?
it's really hard to, do that.
All right, if there's no more questions, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is our key learning from the WASDA annual conference, and we're going to all share a little bit. Dr. Sweeting.
I'll start by just sharing that the WASDA conference, the theme was belonging. So everything that we went to was connected to belonging and how that feeling or knowing that you belong makes a difference in your academic growth and social emotional growth. But we started out, it's true, on Thursday, doing a deep dive into budget coding. It was very deep dive. And so we have pages and pages of that. And so, but I think for me, the takeaway, what hit me was the Saturday keynote, Dr. Adolph Brown. He spoke on closing the empathy gap from his own groundbreaking research. And he made statements such as poverty is not a disability. He made a statement that excellence is getting better. So it's that growth mindset that it's you are better today at something than you were yesterday or from this moment because you keep learning and you keep growing. And he also, I don't want to take it away from what others might say about him, but I really learned a lot about two kinds of backpacks that people carry and how it's important to understand about those backpacks and to also not to judge a book by its cover or a person by the way they look. So those are some key takeaways for me.
Thank you. Let's just go down the row. Mariska, do you want to start?
Okay. This was my first WASDA conference and it did not disappoint. The very first day, like even with the budgeting and financing, it is not something I would have chosen to go to, I will be honest, but it shocked me. Like it was really fun. It was almost like a puzzle, like trying to piece together, like given the situation and piece together what the code was. It was really fun. I genuinely enjoyed it. And I know Kyle and he might talk about this, but I'll talk about it too. Kyle and I went to activity where there were these two men, I cannot remember their names, but they had us write 5 things down about us that make us us. And the activity was go find a partner and the partner takes it away from you and rips it up and just throws it away. And you're supposed to say, like, how do you feel or explain how you feel now that that is being taken from you. And it was really fun to like, I don't know, like take in those things and really say, well, this means a lot to me. And like, what am I without my family? Or what am I now without my passion? What am I now without my religion and stuff like that? And I'll add on to Dr. Sweeting's comments about Dr. Adolph Brown. It really was an inspiring speech he gave. It was moving. I shed a couple tears because it was just so nice to hear something real and hear someone care about how people feel. And the backpack got me. It was amazing. So overall, it was a very good experience. I will not forget it. And I cannot wait for next year.
Director Kelly.
It was also my first experience as a school board director at one of our WASDA events. I agree. It was full of excellent information. It was great to make connections, got to know my board members and my student representatives a little bit more. And I appreciate that, especially after COVID. And I was sworn in via Zoom, so it's exciting to be in front of people again. I also felt Dr. Brown was phenomenal. And I have to admit, I was in the camp of disbelief when he walked on stage and shocked me, absolutely shocked me. That the caliber of individual that stood before me was who he was. And I was guilty of judgment. So just in my own experience, I just was really impressed by everything he brought. And he was so intelligent and articulate and empathetic. I like that a lot. I also appreciated the event where we were able to present to our colleagues about what worked for us, having our personal experiences as a board. I was an ACE member and then became a member, so it was nice sharing that and helping others to maybe grow a program in their district as well. And also just met Carl Carey, who I expect to meet on Zoom in December as a legislative person. Intrigued, especially after what Gina has shared, that those words are very important to me about regionalization, and I really want to own that and understand that, so that when I meet with people, I can imbue the importance of that, and not just as our district, but speaking on behalf of others. So thanks for letting me go. It's fun.
Thank you, Director Kingman.
Yeah, I mostly enjoyed bonding with my fellow school board members. I thought we as a district represented well in the breakout session that we facilitated. I must say the best part of that was when Kyle owned the room. Very good memory for me. And of course, I attended all the budget, bond, and levy meetings, in which I learned that our own Gina has memorized every expense and revenue code in the book, which is very impressive. We also learned that Mary taught you everything you know about accounting. So that was kind of cool. And that's all I have. It was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kingman. I wanted to share, can I just use a little liberty here? When we presented our presentation was about listening to voices and listening to student voices and listening to staff voices and the community voices and all the different things that we have done in our district. And it was quite an impressive list that Carrie shared. And I was just so proud of everything that we were doing in our district to listen. And one of my favorite student voices that we heard from was our student advisor. When we were just doing our introductions, it was very quiet, somber after lunch. Everybody was a little sleepy. And we went around the room and I said, "Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm on the school board since 2019, and I have 6 kids," and blah, blah, blah. And it was really boring. And then the next person said who they were and how many kids they had in the district. And then we got to Kyle, and Kyle said, "I'm Kyle, I'm a student advisor. I have no kids in the district." And everybody just roared with laughter. It was hilarious. So we just really appreciate a little humor and spontaneity. And then everything kind of lightened up, and it was a much more fun presentation. So student voices truly matter. And we're really grateful for that. I went to the budget class also, and I had done it 2 years before, but it hadn't sunk in enough. I think we need to do that every year because it's so foreign and strange and complex. The school budget system it's not super easy to understand, but it was just really fun to get to know our board a little bit better and to just have some bonding times listening to the same speakers talk. And all of the presentations were incredibly well done, and there was so much leadership and vulnerability and kindness and empathy and goodness and challenges. And I was really moved by Tim Garshaw, who I always thought was just this really, smart person, never experienced anything hard in his life. He looked like he had it all put together, and he shared some deeply personal stories about how he had faced some really significant challenges growing up. And it just really resonated with me about that every kid is capable of absolutely anything if they're given the right person to help them up. So I took a bunch of notes. I loved everything we learned, and I'm just so motivated to do the best that we can for our kids because they all matter. So Dr. Sweeting, you already shared. Do you want to share, Erica?
Yeah, it was amazing, just to echo everybody else. And Mary, that you're saying because kids, that reminds me of Dr. Adolph Brown's shirt that said because kids, and I want one of those shirts now. And I was blown away by the Educator of the Year from North Thurston School District, and I want to learn more about their dual credit Native Studies program. And I just wrote some notes here. One thing that he said was, hear hard truths with hearts and hands open. And, we hear a lot of hard truths here in this position, kind of from the overview of everything and just making sure that we're staying open. I think that was really important. And Dr. Adolph Brown, one thing that he said was the most reflective people are the most effective people. And that kind of hit home for me because I don't know if we've had a chance really to reflect on our, as a board, like our own strengths and recognizing strengths in each other until this year. So it was really awesome to see our student advisors just shine during that financial session. They were the only ones in there. And Director Kingman is an awesome public speaker, which we don't always get to see. And Mary's leadership, like just asking us what our favorite type of ice cream is in front of everybody, like put us on the spot. So, it was just, I think, touching. We all cried at one point, I think, and really important learning. Sometimes you wonder, like, are these conferences worth it? But I think, you know, when you're in these sessions, you're also talking with people from across the state. And so learning what's happening in your district and kind of comparing notes and seeing that we're not alone in a lot of the things that we're experiencing. So it was really great and nice drive back, no snow, no ice. So yeah.
Thank you, Kyle.
Just kind of touching on what everybody else said, it was nice to see just the board and everybody that was there in a different light. These meetings are very impersonal. And so just being able to really talk to everybody just as a person without a microphone and a camera, it was very nice. And then on top of that, I really enjoyed Dr. Brown's speech. To me, it was one of those things where it was cool to just sit and watch and not be burdened by taking notes and just kind of to absorb it as your person. So I don't have any notes on that, but it was really cool to watch, and it was touching, and it was a great story to hear. And I think it really applied to a lot of people just today, and it spoke to me. But one thing that I did take notes on was a seminar that I went to, and I don't have the name for it because my app wouldn't work. But they said that justice is removing the fence. And basically what that means, it was the picture that everybody's seen of 3 people, each who's a different height, and then they have equality and they all have one box and only 2 can see over the fence. And then they spread out the boxes and one person doesn't have a box, the other person has 2, then all 3 can see through, see the baseball game over the fence. And they said that the right thing to do in justice would be to make it a chain link fence. And then you don't need the boxes anymore. And so that thing, I think, is just really applicable to schools. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicely said. I think it was incredibly worthwhile for us to go, and I think we all learned quite a bit. Next up, we'll have the first reading of Board Policy 1610, our conflicts of interest. Dr. Sweeting.
Yes, this is first reading, and and Eric will have one after this. The changes are in the, well, first of all, the title. It says districts with 2,000 or more students. So what WASDA has done is there's 2 policies. One's for those that have less than 2,000, one that has more than 2,000. So we left that. First took it off, and then now we put it back. Basically, they just kind of changed the language a little bit, but the intent is the same. So like, for example, instead of saying the school director or superintendent, they say a district officer. The concept here is that we do not, as board members or a superintendent or an officer of the district, that we don't want to be in a place of conflict of interest. So if we have, it speaks to the new language is same. It talks about if there's anything like, it talks, a director or officer may enter into a contract with the district to offer goods and services in 1 year if it's less than 1,500. But there's also some steps that have to happen between that. On the second page, on the first one, there's a lot of crossouts. But when you look at the second page, the blue is really the crossouts from the first page that has been moved to the second page. So that's all that means. It's just the same language, but it's been moved. And this same concept here is it's talking about if a director or a superintendent or an officer has a spouse that's either employed already in the system, you know, they're first of all, we don't discriminate, but you also need to ensure that all candidates have been considered and that there's reasons to have that person employed. So really, we just want to remove any conflict of interest. That's what it is. Okay.
Any questions or edits that anyone would like to propose? Okay, next up is our first reading of 5,400 personnel leaves.
Yes, good evening, directors. So this is a change to this addition to this policy that's basically gives us some flexibility in unpaid leaves for our staff, which we kind of do already. So this is kind of, making it official in the policy. So it's a pretty straightforward addition. Any questions about it?
Any questions from anyone? Okay, next up, we have our second reading and adoption of board policy 3432, emergency preparedness and response. Welcome, Brian.
Directors, bringing to you tonight for second reading, 3 policies total for second reading. Can I address all 3?
Please.
Okay. First policy is 3432, emergency preparedness and response. Substitute House Bill 1941 was adopted by the legislature during its 22 session. The new legislation expanded the requirements for school safety drills. This is an existing policy. The bill added requirements for emergency mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, communications with students and staff regarding emergency preparedness, communications with staff, students, and family about reunification procedures, updating school safety plans, and taking a trauma-informed approach to active shooter scenarios. Last time I spoke with you about this, this is a philosophy where we won't use any kind of recreation of the things that occurred during an active shooter scenario in a training situation. So we avoid those so that we don't create a potential trauma for students and staff participating in those kinds of scenarios. Second policy 4210, regulations of dangerous weapons on district property. Again, this is an existing policy. The change in this policy is that there's a specific application of a bar on possession of dangerous weapons at school board meetings that are at facilities that are not owned by the district, but are used for the purpose of conducting a school board meeting. For example, if the board were to have a meeting at a public facility like a hotel that anybody could attend, and it was leased for the purposes of conducting that board meeting, then the bar on possession of dangerous weapons would extend to that facility for that event. And then the third policy, 6210, rental of lease of district property. It's a mirror to 4210 in a way, in that it allows for the possession of dangerous weapons on properties that are owned by the district that are used, rented or leased for use as a personal domicile, but not for any other purpose. For example, we provide short-term rentals of our facilities for athletic events or for exhibitions or meetings. Those types of meetings would still, there would still be a bar on possession of dangerous weapons at those types of rentals. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Director, or Brian, thank you. I'm tired tonight. He's very important. These are action items. All 3 of them are second reading, so we will be taking action tonight to adopt them if that's how we vote. Do I have a motion to approve board policy 3432, emergency preparedness and response?
I move that we adopt board policy 3432, emergency preparedness and response.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt board policy 3432. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. The next one is Board Policy 4210, Regulation of Dangerous Weapons on District Property. Do we have a motion to approve 4210?
I move that we adopt board policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons on district property.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Board Policy 4210. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat,
Aye.
Next one is our Board Policy 6112, rental or lease of district property. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve board policy 6112.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Board Policy 6112, rental or lease of district property. Madam Clerk?
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Nat.
Aye.
And that one is also adopted. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is our informational items. Next, we'll have our superintendent's report. Dr. Sweeting.
So tomorrow we have Stillaguamish members from the tribe of Stillaguamish are coming to every elementary school and giving us some presentations. And so this is in honor of the Native American Heritage Month, but also we're just trying to learn as much as we possibly can. And I'm so excited for that. We had a meeting with the director of their education department today, and they are ready and they are excited to be here tomorrow. Then on Wednesday night, we have a high cap night for our parents whose children are involved in the high cap opportunities. And so we have about 30 plus RSVPs. And so there's a session from 5 to 6 and then a session from 7 to 8, and it's downstairs in the Washington room. So that'll be really good to have. Then Saturday, if that's not enough, and you would like to go to Post and see robotics competition, it's all day at Post. And then finally, this is a little bit later, not next week, but Rudolph is coming to Arlington High School, and it's December 8th and the 9th at 7 p.m. and then on the 10th at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Right, Mariska? Because I think Mariska's involved in that. All right, that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our legislative update and discussion. Sherry?
So on one of the days, I think it was Thursday when we first popped in on our WASDA conference, I met with Carl Carey, who's out of a director with Granite Falls. And it was kind of an intimate group, but just meeting with him to confirm what our WASDA priorities are. The first is to meet the requirements of special education, provide needed resources for ample, equitable, and stable education. Third one is feeding students. Fourth one is construct safe and healthy schools. And fifth is to transport each and every student. Sometimes I think that I know you have to write kind of a theme, but it feels nebulous to me. And I would really like to get to nuts and bolts, because when you say feeding students, what does that mean? Constructing safe and healthy schools. Again, there's a range there. And I would like to know more specifically what we have, how are we not meeting those needs, and what do we need to make a change? I plan to meet with Carl Carey via Zoom in December, and just put some days and times in. I'd say earlier than later. We do start right in January, and it will be a longer session this year. I do appreciate that Gina did inform us about the necessity or the importance of if that date gets extended. I've always been rooting for the extension, but I see the other side of it now, that there's the other side of that is we have commitments. And if it's extended, then that really tightens that up for us. And that's not a place that we necessarily want to be as a school board. So I appreciate that standpoint. Apparently there was a really good meat of information that Carl presented. And one thing he said was, as an example, the state sets up an arbitrary cap on what they spend on special education. Typically that rate's around 10%. Granite Falls alone is at 20%. Right off the top, they're not meeting what we need them to do. So I really am I've met with several legislators this summer. My daughter and I have campaigned, and I want to put their feet to the fire, because I think it's not fair And I'm a bit of a fireball if I have the opportunity. And I really would like to, I'd like to get down to it and just cut the crap and, move forward and get the money we need. And my daughter is works for developmental kindergarten over in Lakewood as well. And she sees this every day. She sees what these kids have or don't have. So she's a set of eyes and ears as well, which is really important, I think. I'm also understanding meeting the demands. I like what Gina said again, meet the demands we have agreed to. They're not meeting the demands we've agreed to. You're telling us we have to do this, but then you're not funding it. There's a giant chasm between those two thoughts, and that's not fair. Again, every 4 years, the Washington legislature recalculates these formulas used to allocate funding in school districts. And as Mark would say, it's vastly outdated. So my predecessor. So I just, we got a fish or cut bait. I want to see some change and whatever that looks like. Also, I do appreciate we had an impromptu. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to government people. And I spotted Chris Reichdahl. I'm like, Chris Reichdahl. And we all kind of turned around. We did a selfie with Chris because that's how we are. And what was cool about him is that he has talked, one of his very quick talking points was looking at taking the thought to the legislature of increasing salaries. Okay, so that's something on that level. And so I'm hopeful that, again, there's an accommodation for where school districts need to be. But I will keep you all informed. I'm not sure what that date will be with Carl, but whatever it is, and then however we can deploy ourselves. And I just extend this to everyone, board members as well, and parents that you all are, and students, eyes and ears. I want to know what is going on in the different schools so then I can take those stories, because they're constantly telling us we need good stories. We need student voice. So I want to mobilize that. And if anybody has some really good stuff, even if it's, handwritten, or we can get some folks, let's do that, because we need to dazzle them and impress upon them the necessity of what they're not doing. So that's all I've got to say about that.
Thank you, Director Kelly. I'm glad you have a fire. Good. Next up, we're going to have our comments from board members, and I want to challenge everybody as we share comments every meeting to maybe consider what some celebrations are that you would like to share, some good things that you see, or things that you want to celebrate in the school district or personally, or students learning or something like that. So who would like to go first? Director Knapp?
Oh gosh, that is, there's a lot to celebrate. And I think that's timely that you say that, because I personally have been working on focusing more on joy. So I think tonight with the, Simply Amazing. I want to say star something, but it's Simply Amazing. I just loved seeing those listening to the notes and seeing the connection with the principals and the students and the staff. I think it was amazing. We had a range of staff. And so that's a win. That feels like a win. That there was so many nominations. It was really cool. And and Sherry, we had a lot of time to talk over the drive there and back. And I do appreciate your fire and your drive for legislation. And I have 2 children with IEPs, so special education is it touches our family personally. So I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. So
thank you. Kyle?
I have something to go along with my section, so I'll be 1 second here. We all got a pretty cool newsletter. I got here early, so I was able to read it. So that would be my celebration. It was really cool to see just the pictures and the people. And Mary, you were on there. So it was cool to see that. And then we had the nice extended weekend for Thanksgiving. So it was Thanksgiving, and then I worked Black Friday in retail, which was exciting. And then Monday came around and hit me like a brick, but in a good way. And now I have a stats project, which is actually kind of fun. And I didn't think that stats project could be fun, but it's going great so far. So this week has been set up pretty well, I would say. So that is my celebration.
Those are awesome celebrations. Thank you, Kyle.
Yes, and Gary, that is the Our Schools publication he's talking about. So thank you.
Mariska.
Okay. One big thing for me this week, I am starting a job. It's nothing big, but I'm going to be teaching chess to the kids at Pioneer Elementary. So I'll be starting that on Thursday. I've been going through orientation and fingerprinting and all that jazz. So that's something fun. And the Christmas show next week, that is another thing. We're doing rehearsals every day this week, including Saturday, for till 5. So 2:30 to 5. It's not bad, but we're chugging away at it and we're very excited. And the following week after the show, we are doing our middle school and elementary tours where we will go to the schools and perform for them. So that is another thing we're looking forward to. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Sherry, do you have anything you'd like to share also?
Just personal joy, just feeling that I'm having a pretty good year with my students as a kindergarten teacher. So it's funny because sometimes you get, like today was kind of hard coming back for me. I was a little grumpy too, after 4 days on break, and then see the kids and they're all just kind of rascally. And I was like, oh, nobody wants to be here right now. But you just find those kernels, you find those moments of like, we're going to get up and we're going to make even and odd numbers and I'm going to make this super fun, and so just that I can be present. That's so important. And I feel I can do that much better this year. We're getting further away from that epicenter of COVID. So I feel like I can be the teacher I want to be. So even when I find some kiddos who kind of drive me a little nuts, it's funny because they can see the frustration in me. And yet they come up to me and hug me. I'm like, really? You really want a hug from Mrs. Kelly right now? Because I'm not sure if I feel the love, but I tell myself, I just melt and I let it go. And I'm like, I love you too. And we hug and we move on. So I always appreciate that they're always a bundle of joy. They're always that way. So I just have to kind of tap into that a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Kingman, what would you like to share?
I'm filled with personal joy as well. I've got nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kingman. I want to just close by saying one thing that really struck a chord with me. One of the speakers at our WASDA conference said that schools are the heartbeats of our hometowns. And that really resonated with me because I think our schools are incredibly important in our hometown. And I think our hometown is incredibly important. And it's just magical. On Saturday, we had or was that Sunday? I don't even know what day it is now. We had our tree lighting ceremony in the park, and it was just an incredible turnout of community members. And at the heart of our tree lighting ceremony was our school choirs and our drumline from the band, and just an incredible turnout and community support. And it was really neat and magical to see snow falling from City Hall and hear Christmas songs being sung in the park, and it was just really fun. And I am encouraged that so many people are so supportive of community events and our kids in our schools, because kids are the heartbeat of our town. And I wanted to share that I also visited a couple of schools right before Thanksgiving. I visited Kent Prairie Elementary, my baby's home, and also Post Middle School. And I have to say, I noticed some things at both Kent Prairie and Post, and I wanted to share some of my notes if I can find them. At Kent Prairie, it was very warm and welcoming, and there was a beautiful new secure entryway, and they knew who I was when I came. It was like that one TV show where you always want to go where somebody knows your name. It was just really comforting and warm and inviting. And got to see lots of kids learning as much as they could, and they all had little devices or little manipulatives, or they were doing art projects, and there was just so much going on in every single classroom that we visited. I was just really impressed with how much learning the kids were doing. And then we also went to Post the same day, and I saw lots of new staff that were incredibly talented and nice. And I saw the secure gates around Post Middle School. I also saw lots of things that were wrong with Post Middle School, and I have to just be totally honest that it wasn't as happy and warm because like boilers weren't working, and staff were bundled up. So I was kind of sad to see that Post still needs a lot of work. And I heard about some leaky roofs and brand new carpet in the commons getting wet because of the leaky roofs. And I heard that there was no network, and I was really disappointed that the kids were not able to learn all the things that we are expecting them to learn. So I'm really sad about puddles and networks not working, but those kids are incredibly talented and wonderful. And I saw all these amazing art projects that these kids were doing, and just it's a paradox of good and hard, and these kids can do amazing things, but we really need to give them better atmosphere and better environment so that they can rise to their full potential. So I hope that we continue to work on efforts to make Post a better school for our kids. All 6 of my kids have gone through Post, and it's near and dear to my heart, and I love the kids there, and I just want it to be the best it can be. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and let you know that we have a couple more meetings coming up. Just next Monday, December 5th at 5 p.m. So on the 5th at 5 is our special board meeting study session upstairs in the Lincoln Room. And then we'll have our regular board meeting on Monday, December 12th at 6 p.m. right here. So if there is no other comments from anyone, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Madam Clerk.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Kingman.
Aye.
President Levesque.
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. We stand adjourned. Everybody drive safe.